What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're looking at some of the best fixtures from now right up until game week 13. There's a good few teams to look at. We'll talk about whether we should be going for the players from those teams, whether there's lots of options, only one or two, whether you should be buying them, whether you shouldn't as well. So plenty of teams to go through. If you do enjoy this video, give it a like. Hit that subscribe button and let's jump into it. We're going to start off with Man City. As always, I've put the next 6 fixtures on the screen. I've put some player picks on screen as well. Just keep in mind, for some teams, there'll be more players to talk about, and for some teams, there'll definitely be less than what's on the screen. So it doesn't mean if the player's not there, I think they're a bad option, right? I'm going to talk about them, and I've got the FPL screen up here. We can talk about some other Man City players as well. Let's get the obvious stuff out of the way first. This is a team that is the best defence in the league and probably the best attack as well, who've got some really nice fixtures coming up, like Burnley, Brighton, Palace, and Everton. Next 5 are decent. There's nothing to say they can't get a result against Man United as well. So we should be looking to target them. But the question will come in now, is this player nailed? Is that player nailed? So let's get that out of the way. For me, there are 3 players that are nailed for Man City when they're fit. That is Ederson, Diaz, and Kevin De Bruyne, and that is it. And I know Grealish has started every single game so far this season. I know Jesus has started every single game since the first day of the season, or the first game week, but I just wouldn't ever put them as completely nailed. Not even Jack Grealish. Now, you could do it on like a priority order. You could say Diaz, Ederson, and De Bruyne are here. Grealish is here because he started every game, and then you put the rest of them. But I think any of the players, you're going to be worried when the team sheet comes out. I think because of their price, Foden and Grealish is probably where I would look at in midfield, and they might get like 4 out of 5 starts, and Grealish might continue to get started every single game. They've spent a lot of money on him, right? Pep needs him to play games to kind of play in the way that he wants him to, so he could be the best option just for minutes that we've seen so far. But Foden could also get a very similar amount of minutes. And let's not forget the Champions League is around now as well. So if there's important Champions League games coming up, there's nothing to say that, you know, Foden and Grealish might be safe for that, and Sterling and Mahrez might come in. I mean, these fixtures are easy, but that means Pep can maybe start to rotate players in. So we have to accept there will be some rotation, right? I know there's people that will guess the lineups and they'll think that Foden and Grealish are absolutely nailed now. I just don't think we can ever say that for sure while Pep Guardiola is manager. The good thing is, while he's manager, they'll score lots of goals, they'll keep lots of clean sheets, but we'll just never know who's in the team. Now, just quickly on Kevin De Bruyne, for me, I just think he's too expensive. If you're on a 3 premium strategy, which you're happy with, and you can fit him in, then fair enough. But for most of us on 2 premium players, Salah is non-negotiable for me. Even though some of Salah's fixtures coming up aren't ideal, and you might not want to captain him, I don't see why you'd spend transfers on him. And I do think Lukaku, despite the blanks recently, has got Norwich at home coming up in game week 9. So I feel like he has to be in. You can always get rid of him later on, but right now I feel like he has to be in. So you could captain De Bruyne, Burnley at home and Palace at home. But in those game weeks, Salah's got Watford away and Brighton at home. Now, Brighton at home's not easy, but Salah at Anfield can do it against anyone, right? And so I just think you shouldn't worry about ownership, and you could say that De Bruyne is a massive differential, but you were also betting a huge chunk of points potentially against the whole crowd that will go Salah for the most part in those 2 game weeks. So I don't think he's really an option, Kevin De Bruyne. I think he just takes out too much from our teams to put him in. So I'm not saying he's a bad option. I think he's nailed, and when you've got a nailed player in that Man City team, that is great. There's plenty of points to come from him. I just think if it's to sacrifice one of Lukaku and Salah, I'm just not sure I would do it right now. But if you wanted to captain someone else in game week 9, you didn't want to captain Lukaku, you could go for it. But you're stuck with Liverpool away to Man United and Man City away to Brighton, which maybe isn't that bad. Maybe you could go for De Bruyne for the next 3 weeks. Burnley, Brighton away, Palace at home. But I just don't see, if you're not on a wild card, I don't see why you go out and rip your team apart to get Kevin De Bruyne. That's the long and the short of it. In defence, right, Diaz is the most nailed player pretty much in that defence. He's the safest pick. Cancelo is the next most exciting for me. At 6.2 million he is now, actually. He's the most attacking. He should get a good amount of starts. He can play left back or right back. He doesn't necessarily get rotated a huge amount of times, right? So even if Zinchenko comes in, Cancelo could play right back. And he's way more creative than someone like Walker. Personally, I would write Walker off. I know he's a good price, but he's got almost no attacking threat at all. Laporte is an option that I have in my team, but right now, I just don't know how long he's going to keep that place for. So he is a little bit of a risk. So you can go for him, but at some point you're probably going to have to spend a transfer on that position. But while he's playing, it's absolutely fine. So right now, I think Foden or Grealish look like the best options because you don't have to spend a huge amount on them. Just really quickly on Gabriel Jesus, I just don't like the fact that he takes up a striker spot. I think he's a perfectly okay pick with these fixtures, and he has started the last kind of 6 games in the league. But at some point, surely Mahrez is going to start on that right-hand side, or Torres is going to get a game and things will get shifted about, or Sterling will come in up front, maybe Torres plays right wing. I don't know what the hell Pep is going to do next, to be completely honest with you. I just don't like that forward spot being taken up by Jesus. So right now, if I was buying, it has to be Diaz, or I was going to say Di Cancelo or something like that. Diaz, Cancelo, and then probably Foden or Grealish. But with Foden or Grealish, you just accept that at some point they're probably going to get rotated. And I think we all have to accept that if you buy Man City players. They're just so good. If you nail the right one, it can be big points. Okay, so Leeds United, quite an interesting one because we know their attack is really good. We know their defence is really bad. And if you look at those fixtures, like Southampton, Wolves and Norwich sounds quite nice. But Southampton and Norwich are both away and Wolves' defence is quite good. So we have to obviously counteract that with the fact that the Leeds' defence is really good. But I just don't know if there's massive points to come where we need to like kind of double up or even triple up on Leeds players. Rafinha, I mean, we can probably keep this one quite quick with Leeds United. Rafinha is brilliant. For 6.5 million-ish, like around that price point, he is by far the best value option. I would have him in probably in a lot of circumstances ahead of Man City players because you just know that he's going to play. And you know that he's going to play 90 minutes. Obviously, we need to wait for the international break and stuff to go over and make sure that these players are available. But it looks like Rafinha will be available for Game Week 8. He has to be in our teams, in my opinion. Like, if you're wildcarding right now, he should be in that wild card. Even though Leicester at home, Spurs away and Brighton away are not fantastic fixtures, I just don't think I'd sell him. And if I go to the fixtures for him afterwards, you've got Palace at home and Brentford at home, which are nice. Then you're going to run into a tricky fixture run. And when you've got, I mean, that is horrible, by the way. Chelsea, Man City and Liverpool away. Literally the 3 worst fixtures you can have in a 4-game spell. You could possibly make a case to get rid of him, but you'd have to weigh that up in Game Week 16 to realise if there's a better player you can get. Do you have other priorities to transfer out? And the fact that that's over Christmas for a player that you know is going to start every game and play 90 minutes, I don't even know if he would be a massive priority. So I think Rafinha has to be in. Elsewhere, I think Rodrigo's got good numbers, but when Bamford's back, Rodrigo's going to play a little bit deeper, and I just don't think he's an option. And I don't think right now Bamford's an option. Even if he's back this week, would he fully be over his injury? Then he runs into Wolves at home. I mean, Norwich away could be like really good. There could be like 3, 4, 5 goals from Leeds in that game. But then it gets a bit tricky, and I think there's better forward options. So I think we almost have to forget about Bamford now. I wouldn't go near the defence right now either. So for me, for Leeds, it's literally Rafinha, and that's probably it. If you've held on to Bamford and he's ready for Game Week 8, then fair enough, you definitely keep him. But if he's not, or if he's like, you know, possible, he's a doubt or something like that, I just don't see why you go for him right now. The fixtures aren't amazing, and you can always jump on later on. Rafinha, though, he has to be in. I don't know if we ever talked about the fixture swing for Chelsea. I don't know if have I mentioned it? If other content creators mentioned it? Has it been on Twitter? I don't know. Game week 7 or 8, pretty good fixtures for Chelsea. You might have heard about that before. I don't know. But either way, they have some pretty nice fixtures coming up. Brentford away, I mean, I don't really know how that game's going to go. I think Brentford are looking quite good defensively, but I think a team like Chelsea could score a few against them, a bit like Liverpool did. But also, I'm not sure whether Chelsea will be able to keep a clean sheet in this one because Tony and Burma are looking really good, right? But it's a good fixture to bring Chelsea players in for. And Norwich at home, Burnley at home, brilliant, ideal fixtures, and Newcastle away thrown in there. That is a really good, nice run of kind of 4 fixtures. If we look a bit beyond that, obviously you've got the Leicester Man United game, but then they run into Watford away, West Ham away, Leeds at home, Everton at home. This isn't, like, in total, it's just not a bad fixture run at all. You could quite easily keep your Chelsea players long term if you wanted to. Now, obviously, Lukaku is 11.7 million, so there's a big consideration around him for captaincy. Once you don't want to captain him anymore, you can probably look to possibly offload him. And one player I would definitely look at is maybe making the switch from the funds up front going back into midfield. And Son has really nice fixtures from, I think it's game week 12. We can actually just have a look if I just bring up the Spurs fixtures. So this is one thing I'm considering already. Yeah, from game week 12, I mean, Leeds, Brentford and Norwich at home in 4 fixtures, with the other one being Burnley away. This is an incredible set of fixtures. It's very short term, but it is a really nice set of fixtures for someone that's completely nailed on and will pretty much always play 90 minutes. Obviously, that's Eric Dyer, but Son has the same fixtures. So possibly Game Week 12, we could be looking back to offload Lukaku. Now, I'm not saying we'll captain him in all 4 of these fixtures, but Norwich at home looks really good. In Game Week 11, Salah has West Ham away, so that is quite tricky. So you could make a case to captain Lukaku again in Game Week 11, especially when Man United and Man City are playing each other. He probably is then the best captain option that week. So I think he has to be in the teams, right, Lukaku. In terms of defenders, Azpilicueta and Rudiger are definitely the safest. The fact that Chilwell started the last game, you could now look at him. If Reece James is back as well, you can definitely look at him as well. I wouldn't be going for Thiago Silva. I wouldn't be going for Christensen. Mason Mount, just jumping off the defence for a second, is someone we could consider. Now, originally, I kind of, not written off the idea, but I really like Lukaku plus double defence. But depending on how you set your team up, especially if you're mostly just going to play 3 at the back, well, if Trent's fit, he has to be in. Man City fixtures are really good as well, and they're a brilliant defence. So you could have one of them. You could even have 2. So there is a case that you could maybe just have Lukaku 1 defender and then have Mason Mount. Now, for 7.4 million, you're getting very close to kind of Man City player territory. The thing with Mount is I think he's pretty much nailed on. And I think he will start most games. Obviously, he hasn't been fit recently, but he does kind of change the way they play. And I think he's pretty integral to how they attack, right? And obviously, he's good in terms of defense as well because he does a lot of tracking back, a lot of pressuring from the front as well. So I actually think Mason Mount might be a nice option if you only need 1 Chelsea defender and you've got Lukaku as well. Because week to week, you're not really worrying about whether he starts or not like you might be with some other players. So he might not be as explosive and his underlying numbers might not be so good. Obviously, they're really good this season, but I would expect them to come down more to the levels from last year. But if he's going to tick over and start every game, he could be just as good as an explosive option from another team who might not start, right? So if they played the same minutes, Foden and Grealish are definitely ahead of Mount. But I don't know if they will play the same minutes, and you could then say that Mason Mount is a good option. But right now, I think Azpilicueta and Rudiger, if you just want safety of knowing they're pretty much going to start every game. Outside of that, you've got Reece James and Chilwell, which are a bit more exciting. Reece James in particular, because I think he's got less competition, but there is that worry about rotation. If you've got a deep squad, maybe it's worth it. But sometimes just minutes are king. Getting those clean sheets off Azpilicueta and Rudiger is the way to go, and they will probably be the 2 I'd look at. But for me, Lukaku has to be in. He's going to be a captain option a couple of times in the next few weeks. Okay, let's talk about Wolves, right? They've got some pretty nice fixtures coming up, although they have a lot of away games. So Villa, Leeds, Palace and Norwich are all away. But in general, I think that's quite a nice fixture run, especially for a team that are looking pretty good, right? I don't think they're ever going to blow anyone away. I don't think we're going to expect to see kind of 3, 4, 5 goals from Wolves very regularly. But they will win these matches. They will defend well, and they will get chances as well in attack, right? I have gone for Jimenez, and I still think he's a good option for 7.5 million. I do think he'll tick over between now and Game Week 14. I don't think he'll ever probably get an explosive score like 15 points plus, but I think he'll be good value for that 7.5. His numbers are looking okay on an individual basis, like 0.47 expected goal involvement is not that bad. I will say a lot of that is being made up from expected assists rather than expected goals. So it'd be nice if he could get a few more decent chances in terms of in front of goal. But his numbers are okay, and they're very similar to someone like Grealish so far this season. The big difference is you know Jimenez is going to play every game. You know he's going to play 90 minutes, and he's also got penalties as well. So I still think he's a good pick. Now, a lot of people are not going to double up on Wolves' attack. I think there's too many other forwards to do that. It's not necessarily that I think doubling up on an attack is bad. I even don't think it's bad to double up on 2 forward spots. But right now, I don't see a place for both Jimenez and Hwang in our team. Now, I did talk about him yesterday, and I think for 5.6 million, he's very interesting. His goal threat is good. I retweeted a link from an article where Hwang was talking about his partnership with Jimenez and how Jimenez is there to kind of make the passes and then Hwang will run onto them. Something like that anyway, which is quite interesting. It's almost like Jimenez becomes the assister and Hwang scores the goals. Now, if that's going to be the case and he plays every minute from now going forward and gets a similar amount of minutes to Jimenez, he's going to be ridiculously good value. So you could take a bit of a punt on him. I think there's some people saying that Hwang is now absolutely nailed. I don't know if we can definitely say that. They've got so many players to play in those wide spots. Trincao, Hwang himself, obviously Traore, Podence can play there as well. At some point, Neto's going to be an option too, but not for a little while, right? He's been out for quite a long time. So I don't know if we can say 100% that he's nailed to start every game and he's going to play 80 to 90 minutes. But it does look good. Like if we go and look at his time so far, so obviously he wasn't available at the start of the season, comes on, scores a goal straight away, then he gets 45 minutes the next game, and then he plays the last two. Now I didn't think he or Podence were particularly good against Southampton, but obviously the manager has seen enough to play him in the next game, and he's then gone on and scored 2 goals. Newcastle at home is a pretty good fixture, so we shouldn't necessarily expect this kind of performance every week, but his numbers from the Bundesliga were also pretty good. So if you want to take a bit, like if you've set up a wildcard team where you've got really solid player picks and you want to go for 1 or 2 punts, then Hwang is definitely not a bad option. If he keeps his place, he's going to score plenty of points. But if you want safety, you pay a premium for it, but you get Jimenez nailed on 90 minutes, penalties. In defence, I still think Semedo is the one to get. Like his goal threat and basically his assist and attack, attacking potential, assist and goals is pretty nice. I don't think he's necessarily always makes the best decisions when he's in front of goal, when he is in one of those attacking positions in the final third. But the numbers are pretty good, and Wolves' defence is also pretty good as well. So I wouldn't necessarily put someone off buying Semedo, although, like I said, there are quite a few away fixtures. You could see Villa scoring possibly, you could see Leeds scoring, but the Wolves' defence is hard to crack, so I don't think it's a bad buy. Marçal is an interesting one because he keeps playing left wing back and he's doing okay-ish, but a lot of Wolves fans think that he should come out for Ait-Nouri, so at some point maybe he'll lose his place, and I don't really like spending 5 million on goalkeepers either. So Jimenez and Hwang are the only attackers we should be looking at right now from Wolves, and in defence for me it should be Semedo if you can afford it. You could go a bit cheaper for someone like Cody if you can't, but I'll try and find the extra 0.4 for Semedo if you want to target those fixtures. I'm just not sure I'd rush out to get a Wolves defender right now. I think Southampton's going to be quick, to be completely honest with you. Ward-Prowse obviously suspended after his red card. I don't think he's a good option anyway. I know the fixtures are there. Like even if he was available for game week 8, he is on penalties, so we have to give him a bit of kind of credit for that in terms of being an FPL pick. But his numbers are always really poor. 0.17 expected goal involvement per 90. That is less than some fullbacks in FPL, right? Like Trent, like Cancelo, like Luke Shaw will be close to that as well. Semedo is exactly the same. So Ward-Prowse from open play isn't great, and I know we can say he's really good at set pieces, but he doesn't necessarily get a lot of points from them. The penalties are good. It's not enough to put him in my team. There's too many other good midfielders to even want to go there. Livramento is probably the best bench enabler right now defensively. 4.2 million, extremely cheap. He plays every game. He's also playing quite advanced. He's also pretty good as well, right? He got the assist for the penalty against Chelsea. So Livramento is definitely an option. Outside of that, I really think Armstrong's the only one we should be considering. McCarthy in goal. I know people like the short-term fixtures, but if you are buying a goalkeeper, you are very unlikely to want to spend a transfer on them. Right? Trust me on this. You're very unlikely to want to spend a transfer on a goalkeeper because the ceiling is just not that high. So most managers will not spend transfers on it. So you're basically going to have them between now and your next wildcard, which probably won't be till around game week 30. That's a lot of game weeks. So it doesn't matter if the fixtures are good now because they're going to have some bad fixtures as well, in which case you should just target good defences. And I think Ramsdale and Sanchez are both better options than McCarthy. So Armstrong's the only other one, 6 million. We don't really know who's going to take penalties necessarily while Ward-Prowse is out. The fixtures are definitely there. That is a really good run. Leeds, Burnley are all at home. Watford and Norwich away. Brilliant set of fixtures. He is a good cheap enabler and possibly the best 6 million right now. But for a little bit more, you get Tony in place for Brentford's good fixtures. I would say Brentford's attack is a little bit better. Tony is also on penalties as well. So in the short term, Armstrong's probably the better pick, but it's very short term. Tony soon becomes the better option. But if you're wildcarding right now, you need a cheap enabler up front. Armstrong's the one. I would ignore Ward-Prowse. Livramento, best enabler in defence, and that is it. I wouldn't look anywhere else with Southampton. So Arsenal, a little bit opposite to some of the teams we talked about, where they've got a lot of home fixtures. So Palace, Villa, Watford and Newcastle, all at home over the next 6. That is a really nice run. Now, I already own 2 Arsenal players myself, Ramsdale in goal, and I own Saka as well. I still think Saka for 6.3 million is quite a nice price, but it depends how you're going to set up your team, especially for those of you on wildcard. You might want to put in like a Grealish or a Foden there. I've got to be honest, I am very tempted already, just a spoiler alert for the team selection next week. I'm a little bit tempted tempted to sell Saka to a Man City midfielder. But then when I talk about out loud and I see Palace, Villa, Watford, Newcastle at home, maybe I need to give him a little bit more time. His numbers so far this season haven't been great. But again, we're still looking at a fairly small sample. The fixtures or the numbers last year were pretty good. So I'm hoping he can kind of get up to that level. And I still think he's the most nailed on Arsenal defender. Like if I bring, attacker, I should say, Arsenal attacker. I think if I bring up the Arsenal fixtures or the other Arsenal players, like Smith Rowe has to be a consideration. Maybe I've kind of not done him enough justice for the minutes that he's getting. He has started the last 3 games. He has started every single game apart from Norwich at home. So maybe he's going to get more minutes than I'm giving him credit for. But I still think at some point surely Pepe plays, and I just don't think it's going to be Saka that misses out. So I don't think Smith Rowe is 100% nailed to start every single game. I do feel that way about Saka, but he might get enough minutes to warrant the 5.3 million price point. Plus he is getting forward, and also he's just played really well, and Arsenal have had some good results where Arteta might not want to change the team too much. So you could go for Smith Rowe. Odegaard's the other option for a similar price. He seems pretty nailed. He came off early in the last game against Brighton, didn't have a particularly good game, but he should be fine going forward. I just don't think he's going to get enough goals. I don't think him or Smith Rowe will necessarily get enough goals. They are a cheap price, I get that, but they do take up a slot in our teams, right? We have to remember that. Just because they're good value, what are they stopping us doing elsewhere? And I think Mbeumo is better than both of them. Now, for Chelsea at home, maybe not, and possibly not even for Leicester at home, but they got a nice fixture on coming up. He's playing up front, and right now he looks pretty nailed. For Brentford, we have to take into account Wissa, I think it's Wissa as well, who keeps coming off the bench and scoring. So at some point he might take minutes off of them. They might change formation or something like that. But Mbeumo should be pretty much nailed. And I just think I think Brentford are going to score a few goals over this little run. And even after Everton and Spurs, it's like Leeds away, Watford at home. Now, you can literally get in them now and just be happy right up until game week 16 as long as they keep their place. So that is why I don't like Smith Rowe and Odegaard as options. It's not that I think they are inherently bad picks. It's that they block something else. And I've got Saka because I think he's more nailed than both of them. 4 minutes, right? So that's the attack. Aubameyang has to be an option because of the fixtures. Like, they are pretty damn good. But I just don't think, unless you're someone that likes going against the grain and taking a bit more of a risk, I just don't see why you'd captain him against the likes of Salah, De Bruyne and Lukaku over the next few weeks. And obviously, let's not forget about Ronaldo and Fernandes when the Man United fixtures turn as well. So I think Aubameyang's a nice option for our teams if you've got your other captains in place. He's 9.9. He's cheaper to fit in than Vardy. So I wouldn't completely write him off. Again, it's just all about setting up our FPL squads. Is there a way to fit him in? You might find it, but for me, I would find it pretty difficult right now, and so I wouldn't really be looking at him. In defence, I think Tierney is the one. You could go for Tomiyasu. I don't know if he's going to be as attacking as Tierney. I would highly doubt it. But he probably is going to be a bit more attacking than Ben White, who basically offers nothing but clean sheets and the odd bonus point here or there. So there's nothing wrong with going for him at 4.4 million, but for an extra 0.5, you do get a lot more attacking threat from someone like Tierney, so he's the one I would go for. On Ramsdale versus Sanchez for goalkeeper options, I'm still very torn. It's the same thing with McCarthy. Yes, Arsenal fixtures are better in the short term, but we're going to keep this goalkeeper for a while. And last season, if we're going by expected data, which I use a lot, Brighton defence was better. They're also looking better this season as well. So I've gone Ramsdale because I think they'll hopefully get clean sheets and hopefully he'll get some save points, which I'm not really seeing from Sanchez at all. But I do wonder if I made a slight mistake. So if you want to keep Sanchez, I don't think there's any problem with that. But Ramsdale's also not a bad option either. So if you do want to make the change for 4.5, Ramsdale's probably where I would go. We could also talk about Raya in another video as well. But right now for Arsenal, I think Saka is the one for me. Tierney in defence if you can afford it. Otherwise, probably Ben White and just save the money. But the fixtures are good. And that amount of home fixtures, I really like. So there we go. Let me know which of these teams you're going to be targeting, which players you're going to pick. Are any of the players that I've said I probably wouldn't go for? Are you going to go for them? Smith Rowe and Odegaard in particular, I know are popular. I just haven't really looked at all, if I'm completely honest. But let me know in the comments below. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you are new around here as well. We are well on our way to 250k. It's getting closer. There's less than 9,000 subscribers. If you've been enjoying my content, please don't go and hit that button, I should say. And also, if you haven't signed up to Patreon, link in the description below. Big shout out to Timmy, who signed up since the last video as well. So if you want to support me over there, you can do. I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you soon.